Happy Friday, and thanks for tuning into radiofreerhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm. I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Mr. Bob Wills. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Norm, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you.
We were introduced.
I don't know why, but
well, I'll tell you. We were introduced to the first Friday, like last year or the year before, or something down here in Rhinecliff. So somebody said, "Oh, this is Bob Wills. He's the Commodore of the." And I don't even know if I heard what came next. I'm like, Commodore? Let's have him on the show. But what came next was the Hudson River ice yachting thing.
correct.
Which I had seen years before. I think you just said it must have been 2014.
Yes, that's right.
I'd walked out in the river, and there were all these ice yachts.
That was an amazing collection of boats. It was unique that we had ice and no snow. So people
Right.
came from the Midwest and up in Maine and came down. So I think we had 35 old historic ice yachts from the 1900s,
Right.
1800s.
And I remember somebody saying that day, it was a gorgeous day. It was like 30 degrees or something, like just perfect and blue skies, that there was a huge boat that hadn't been on the river in like 100 years or something.
That's right.
That's
Yes.
ringing a bell. Huh?
Well, it sure does. So there were two boats out there, but the special boat was the launching of the Rocket, which was from the North Shrewsbury Ice Boat and Yacht Club in Red Bank, New Jersey. That boat was one of their club boats. It was restored by this gentleman named John Holian, and it has 750 square feet of sail. It's the largest or second largest twin in size ice boat that exists, and we also had our club boat Jack Frost on the ice. Jack Frost was world champion ice yacht owned by Archibald Rogers, and the two were able to race for the first time, and it was just a spectacular and historic day that we all enjoyed.
And Archibald Rogers was an ice boating rival of
John Roosevelt and the Roosevelt family.
Right.
And he was also best friends with FDR and influenced FDR to plant all the tulip trees on his property down there. Influenced him to do scientific forestry down on the estate.
I didn't know that. There's only tulip trees?
It was a plantation of tulip trees. No, not specifically, but many of the trees were tulips. They were favorite of Franklin.
One of my favorites. That's the yellow poplar, also known as, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Gorgeous, beautiful,
Great
flowering
flowers,
tree.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, I'm gonna have to go down there and look. And they flower early, I think, like May or
That's
early
correct.
June or something. Huh. So, are you a tree person in addition to all of this?
I guess only peripherally. I'm retired from Dutchess County, where I was the Geographic Information Systems Coordinator for the Planning and Health Departments, and had a lot to do with the parcel access that so many people use, and the a great trails application that we have still running on the website. And I did a lot of research and purchased aerial photography and supplied the politicians with information they could use to hopefully make good decisions.
And what percentage of them actually made good decisions with the good information?
I had a great boss that let me do whatever I wanted. And I combined my work at the county with my long tenure at Winnicke Land Trust as a board member to manage properties. And we had a great time. So I wowed the politicians with pictures and information, and so they had to make the right decisions once they saw that stuff. And my wife Marie likes to say always that I was paid to play and no one knew what I really did. So it was a fun job.
That's a good way to keep your job in a big bureaucracy.
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
Huh. And how many years did you do that?
Oh, that was about 25 years I did that. I retired in 2019.
It was a pretty good stretch. That parcel viewer is amazing.
Yeah. It's
and did you help develop that in your...
Just initially. I'm not a computer programmer. I don't program, but I came up with, creative ideas and was part of the team that envisioned what it would look like at the beginning, and then the programmers took it over and fashioned what appears on the internet.
And so was that one of the first parcel viewers in a municipality?
I believe it was. Yeah. It started in my tenure at the county. Started at the real property tax office, which is actually a good place for anyone who wants to be involved with public service to start, because that's where the money comes in. You know, and you see where the money goes once it comes in. Right. So it's a real learning experience. But part of my job there, I was hired after teaching at Dutchess Community College and SUNY New Paltz, teaching architecture and geographic information systems. But I was in charge of digitizing all of the tax parcel maps, which were paper at the time. So I was managing a consultant that did that initial work that turned into the data that is shown on parcel access.
Wow. So those parcel maps are big.
Yes, they are.
So digitizing them, like I've got a scanner at home. It can take sort of a regular sized piece of paper. Did you have enormous scanners, or did you photograph them? Or
no, they weren't. They were not directly scanned from paper. The paper maps were used to inform the consultants that we hired to actually draw all of the lines over again, because there were so many irregularities in the maps, especially between municipalities and between map sheets. There was two editions of aerial photography that were especially problematic in the 70s and 80s that were used to delineate all the new subdivisions that were happening at the time. And they did not correct for the curvature of the lens of the camera. So all of the resulting lines that were drawn from those photographs had this radial error.
That makes sense.
Made none of them match. So all of that had to be reworked.
So it sounds like you enjoyed those jobs, those tasks.
I guess I did. I don't know if I'm schizophrenic or what, but I mean, I like the creative side of things, of architecture, but also this kind of analytical stuff. So
right. And so you were teaching architecture at SUNY Dutchess and at New Paltz.
Right. GIS at New Paltz and architecture and other things at Dutchess.
And so I'm guessing you were a licensed architect somewhere.
Yeah.
And were you doing that before you started teaching? You still do this?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I still do it. I'm trying to be retired because I have other obligations now to the Hudson River Ice Yacht Preservation Trust, a new not-for-profit that that New York State chartered last October.
Right.
So I don't really have the time to get involved with architecture. So my practice was always small. I would work for friends and just keep it small and interesting to myself. So it's kind of where that went.
So first off, congratulations on getting the charter for the Hudson River Ice Yacht Preservation Trust.
Thank you.
I assume you were the main force behind that.
Yes, yeah. We spent a long time and went down a couple of different directions, but we got some great legal advice, pro bono legal advice from Victoria Polidoro. Shout out to her, and John Grady, accountant in Rhinebeck, and they put us on the right path. We started going down the 501c3 path, not-for-profit path. But Victoria told us that a idiosyncrasy of New York State law is that if a not-for-profit holds historic objects, you have to get a charter from the Board of Regents of the Department of Education. So essentially, you become a museum, unlike, I think, any other state. So that made it much more complex to do. So we had a lot of museum-like requirements that we had to promised to fulfill as we grow before New York State would give us a charter. So
Right.
we were able to accomplish all that, and the IRS has given us our 501c3 and registered with New York State Charities, and we are in business now. So
Wow. Well, congratulations again. I understand you brought some champagne.
I sure
Now
did.
might be a good time to have a little toast to,
It is
to that process.
That's a great idea. It's a tradition of ice boating to imbibe with some champagne. So,
I have seen pictures of ice boats and a bottle of champagne just sitting on the ice next to it. And I thought, well, I guess that's what you'd do, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, one of our members was a professional champagne maker. So,
Oh, wow.
years and years ago, decades ago, we had unlimited champagne that we were
That's
we were
pretty
able
nice.
to drink. So here we go. This is a Kila Cava, chosen for us by Ray Peraza, who used to own Panzur, the restaurant in Tivoli, and who is now the director of operations for Elementary Rossi, the Rossi's Deli out in Eastdale Village, just on Route 44 outside the Taconic.
Okay.
I've been friends with Ray for a long time. I was a guest chef a couple times at his restaurant, and he catered an event we had at the FDR Library that I'll talk about. And he also chose these wines, especially we wanted a cava, and this is from northwest of Barcelona.
Wow. Well, thanks, Ray. And thanks, Bob, for bringing it in. It looks great. So I can tell already we're not going to get to everything. Everything you say raises another 10 questions. But you were guest chef at one of his restaurants. What did you? That sounds like a lot of pressure. I like to cook, but my God, I would be so nervous if I were a guest chef somewhere.
Why don't we
Cheers.
tink first?
Yeah.
Chin, chin, chin.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, that's yummy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
So he said, would you like to be guest chef someday?
Well, no, it wasn't quite like that. Every Wednesday he would have what he called family night. So Kim, his wife, and Ray would have family style, very elegant, delicious food, but a little bit reduced in price from the usual, so that you can bring a lot of people and have kind of
nice.
more of a party atmosphere. So one day he said, I'm looking, I'm wondering what to do for the next family night. And I said, well, there's nothing better than pierogies. So I think you should make pierogies. And he said, well, I don't know how to make pierogies. And I said, I'll make them for you. I've been making them my whole life, my Polish heritage. So he said to me, you wouldn't last a minute in my kitchen.
Oh, look at that.
And I said, you're on.
You took the bait.
You're on. and through a lot of swearing and middle finger raising, I was in the kitchen for a day and a half. We made, 400 pierogies, and he fashioned them kind of like, the name just flew out of my head, he kind of deep fried them, kind of like the Spanish version of
empanadas. Is that
empanada? Yeah, kind of like an empanada, but just lightly. They still felt like pierogies, and stuffed with meat and cabbage and cheese filling. So it was a big success. We did it once, and then about a year later, we did it a second time. So after I proved myself that I can withstand the heat of his kitchen.
That sounds kind of fun.
It was fun. It was a blast.
And you mentioned your Polish roots, and I happen to know you came from Chicago.
Correct. Yes. Yep.
Was Will's the name? Was it like Wilenepski or something?
No. Actually, it was Wilczynski.
Oh, come on! I get partial credit for that.
And through kind of a terrible existence that my father and his brothers had growing up. A lot of abuse and inability to get jobs, whatever. They decided to change their name
by dint of being Poles in the New World here.
Yes, yeah. So I always, thought to myself as a kid, boy, I can't change my skin color to, like some people who are prejudiced against, and but my father was able to change his name, so
right.
That struck a chord with me always.
Yeah. And after the name change, did they have easier time finding work?
I don't think so.
It's ridiculous.
Probably, yes, a little bit, but
right.
Yeah,
but then so you came into the world, Wills, not this other name, and you did you feel any of that sort of prejudice?
No, I didn't. My parents, I guess, and grandparents were kind of protective. My sister and I wanted nothing more than to learn Polish, and we certainly absorbed the heritage, but no language. The only Polish I know are swear words, and my parents, when they didn't want us to know something, would speak in Polish. So I've tried learning since. I've been to Poland. I've been to where my mother's family was from, but I've never taken it much farther than that. So
well, that and the pierogi recipe, which I'm guessing came from
my mother's pierogi recipe.
Yeah,
yes.
It was.
Yeah,
that's sweet. And do you have other Polish traditions in your family?
Christmas, Christmas time mostly. Right. The Christmas meal, Christmas Eve meal. But
there's like St. Wenceslas, or there were other Polish things, I think. No.
Yes. Well, growing up in Chicago had more Poles than any city outside of Warsaw. So
I'll bet.
There was quite a concentration there, and I had 3 uncles who were priests in a Polish order of priests. So there was a lot of I won't say indoctrination, but influence through those relationships, which I'm certainly proud of. There isn't much place for me to express those today. I'm happy you asked about it, because there's it's rare that I get to talk about it. So
yeah, well, it's always interesting to me. I mean, I was raised without any of that shit. My people at one point came from Sweden, but also from like Germany and Scotland and all these other places, and we didn't have any of that. And I know so many people who do, and it's so it's always kind of interesting to me. Yeah. And do you have any of it here? I don't know of a Polish community around here, but there must be some.
Not really. Not that I know of. I guess there are Polish clubs in Poughkeepsie or whatever, but it's not. It hasn't been that big a part of my life. It was something in the back of my mind.
Right.
It's great. Telling my kids about that and having them know that part of the history, but
are they interested in it at all?
A little bit peripherally, in the same way. They aren't ready to become Polish scholars or anything, but.
And how old are they?
My son Zach is 31, and my younger son Kaz is 29 or 30.
And do they live around here?
Opposite ends of the Amtrak line. Zach is in Manhattan and Inwood, and Casey's up in Troy. Casey's an RPI graduate, and Zach went to school in the city at Fordham and Columbia. So
right. Yeah. Well, if the conditions, so Troy, the Hudson River has those locks up there. And when you're in the south side of the locks, it's clean sailing all the way down to New York City.
Yes. Yeah.
So if the conditions were right, could you take one of these 140 mile an hour ice boats all the way down?
It has been done. Yes.
Has it?
Yeah. But in like 1820, there are stories of an ice boat carrying passengers and sheep that started in Athens, New York, and went up to Albany to drop off their cargo. And there's also been stories of sailing from Chelsea or Carthage Landing. What used to be called Carthage Landing, up to Poughkeepsie for races. So at least that northern end of the river has certainly been sailed.
Right.
So what became a sport that influenced and intrigued everyone from kids to scouts to the wealthy estate owners on the river were intrigued by the speed of these boats. They were the fastest vehicles on Earth. They would race the railroad trains and beat the trains. There was nothing, no airplanes, no cars. So
right.
At least the estate owners would commission a new boat every year to race their neighbors and beat their neighbors. And the races were covered by every newspaper. New York Times, they would have their America's Cup correspondent come up to see the ice boat races, and hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars were exchanged hands, and thousands of people were on the ice watching these races.
And did it sort of capture the national imagination? I mean, was it like that big of an event?
No, there was a diaspora of ice boats from the Hudson River, ended up being used in Madison, Wisconsin, and Traverse Bay, Michigan, partly because of the 1876 Centennial Exposition. Irving Grinnell, a gentleman from Wappingers Falls, commissioned an ice boat called Whiff that was, at the time, considered the most beautiful ice boat ever to be made. It was on display at the Centennial Exposition, and the people from Madison, Wisconsin, who were down there viewing the exhibit, saw it and started building similar style boats in Madison. So that was one of the ways that it did spread. But there's only been a few hotbeds of this activity around the country. It started with the Dutch transporting goods in winter. There are etchings and paintings of hulled ships with ice skates on the bottom of the ships that were used in the Netherlands and then here on the Hudson River in the 1600s.
Right.
And people realized how fast these things go, and then the designs morphed into something that focused solely on speed.
So there must have been a lot of people getting hurt at one point doing this. I mean, if they were going that fast.
People that were hurt?
Yeah, I would think. It seems like kind of a dangerous sport.
Not really. There's only a couple of instances where there were accidents.
Right.
But
that seems surprising.
It's like when we're thinking about sailing, a team of us, of club members, will go out and check the ice out, slowly with ropes and whatever safety gear we need. So make sure the ice is safe, and we have there's strict rules of sailing, of racing, so we follow those, and we make sure we know who we're sailing with so that we don't have accidents. How
do you determine that the ice is strong enough to...
We carry measuring devices and ice hammers along, and
what kind of measure?
We poke holes in the ice.
So you poke a hole and then you stick a tape rule down to see how thick it is?
Mm-hmm.
And how thick are you looking for?
It varies. This 2 weeks ago we were on Stockbridge Bowl in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. It was the only place that had ice because it's so high in elevation. So they, for a small lake that has kind of known boundaries and influx of warmer water from streams and such, 6 to 8 inches is more than enough for boats. The Hudson, we like having 12 inches minimum because of the tidal flow and the friction of the water on the undersurface of the ice.
That's weakening the structural integrity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Huh. 12 inches. Now, I mentioned to you before we went on, I was down there in like 2014, 15. and you could see through the ice to the river beneath it.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It was so gorgeous to be out on the ice on this beautiful day.
Yeah, especially something that we experience on Tivoli Bays,
Right.
which is kind of our has always been our home ice. It's the place that freezes first, and we can, because it's contained, we can sail with 4 to 8 inches of ice there. So it's a great experience there. Many times it'll be black ice, and we can go on the backside of Skilly Pot Island and stare down at the undersurface of the the bottom of the bay, and with fish floating around and everything else. It's a unique experience.
Wow. And I've been in Tivoli Bays. I mean, it's like, it seems like the average depth is like 3 or 4 feet or something.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. And it's interesting there because it's tidal, the influx of water through the bridges carrying the railroad trains. What happens there is at low tide, many times if the ice sheet is strong enough, it will hang up on the mud hummocks underneath the on the bottom. So you will sail along, and you go uphill and downhill on the ice sheet,
Oh boy.
which is another unique experience. But
I hadn't even thought of that. I mean, it seems like it makes sense that the ice would rise and fall.
Yeah. So we have to accommodate that with ramps and such to get from shore onto the ice sheet. But so there's always that open water along the edge of the
shore.
ice along shore. But we're perfectly safe once we get out in the river, and it's actually safest out by the channel,
Right.
because the bow wave of the large ships throw the ice up, and the ice is usually much thicker right along the channel, so helps lock it all in.
When did they start cutting that channel?
Well, that's an interesting story. Franklin Roosevelt never wanted to cut the channel because it was going to ruin ice boating. So he delayed it as long as he can, and Wint Aldridge from the Rokeby estate up in Barrytown tells the story about Erastus Corning, the mayor of Albany, coming down to FDR. They wanted to open the river up so that the Waterville Arsenal could ship weapons and ammunition in the winter. And Roosevelt went over to his window, and she said, "What do you see out there?" And he said, "Well, the Hudson River." And he said, "I'm an ice boater. My sons are going to be ice boaters, and I don't want them to miss the experience of ice boating. So I don't know when I'm ever going to allow for the river to be
It must have been so maddening to everybody who wanted that channel."
Yeah.
So you mentioned Roosevelt and his sons, and one of the things that it seems, looking into the history of ice boating, is it's a guy sport, not a lot of women in it at all. Is it like that to this day?
You couldn't be more incorrect.
Oh, good. That's the theme of this show. So thank you.
Norm, God damn you, you're wrong again.
Yeah, good. Now, I know there was a Roosevelt daughter who
Ellen Roosevelt was a crack ice yachter. She would take Icicle, John Roosevelt's. John is FDR's uncle.
Okay.
Take John Roosevelt's boat Icicle, which was also one of the largest ice boats out there, 750 square feet of sail. That is currently residing at the Hudson River Maritime Museum, but that someday we hope to get back on the ice to sail with Rocket and Jack Frost. But Ellen was a crack sailor and would take Icicle out, or some of Roosevelt's other boats, and soundly beat all the men out there, and they kind of refused to sail with her. So
because they didn't want to lose to
they didn't want to lose. She was also the U.S. women's and doubles tennis champion in 1902. So she had quite a career.
Quite a person. I wonder if I want to
Doubles with her sister. So
nice.
Long before the Venus and Serena.
Right. I want to see a movie about this person.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah,
So
same here.
You mentioned the Hudson River Maritime Museum, which is over there in the Rondout in Kingston, and they have at least one ice boat that I saw over there.
Yeah, they actually have two. Icicle you can't really identify as an ice yacht because it's in pieces, kind of sitting in a corner. But the other boat that they have hanging up on the wall in a tremendous hike, on two runners, is Knickerbocker, which was an old boat that proved to be kind of unmanageable and unsaleable a long time ago. So it was given to the museum, and it's on display there now.
And what makes a boat unmanageable?
Well, the designs, people kept experimenting to try and get the maximum speed out of these things. So at one point in the late 1800s, people said, well, bigger is better. So let's make 1,000 square foot sail on this boat. And the old rule was 1 horsepower per square foot of sail. So Jack Frost, for instance, our club boat has 750 square feet of sail. It might weigh 1,800 pounds. So you have a tremendous amount of, propulsion in a light boat. And I've been on Jack Frost with 3 other people going 80 miles an hour.
Yeah,
it's kind of amazing. So, excuse me, bigger proved not to be better because the boats became completely unstable. They might go upwind well, but going downwind, they would just flip over. And people started making the sails smaller and repositioning where the mast sits in the structure so that the center of effort of the sail was more over the area, over the runners that could provide the most resistance to that force, the 2 runners on the plank, or the runner plank up. It's hard describing this on the radio if you don't have a picture of one in front of you. But designs continued evolving till what you have today are the fastest ice boats only have 75 square feet of sail, and they are tall and very thin sails. They're just like an airplane wing on a boat that's all carbon fiber, enclosed cockpit, looks like a fighter plane. And the speed record right now for those is about 140, 150 miles an hour. So it's orders of magnitude above what our old boats can do.
And is there a place, like sort of the Bonneville Salt Flats for cars? Is there a place where ice yachts go to set these speed records?
Wherever there's ice.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of racing that happens today with smaller classes of boats. There was a competition in the 1930s by the Detroit News, the paper of Detroit, who said, let's have a competition to design a car toppable ice boat, something small that a single person can sail.
Right.
So this DN class of boats was developed with small sails. I forget what the square footage area of sail is on those boats, but those boats, that class is now a world champion class. Every European country has a team of those, as does every club in the U.S. So it's that's where racing happens today. Our club kind of prides ourselves in maintaining the boats exactly as when they were built. So we try not to use modern materials, and we keep them looking exactly the same. Folks out in the Midwest will take the old boats and I'll say bastardize them with changing the shape of the sail and using stainless steel and carbon fiber and different things. They don't look like the old boats. They look like some mongrel of ice boats. So
Look at
sorry,
you.
sorry, people in Madison, Wisconsin.
The
but-
traditionalist
right.
who
We
starts a
certainly
place
are, yes.
called the Preservation Trust. So I guess that's a good fit. So did you ever race ice yachts yourself?
Sure. Yes, yeah.
And you have some boats of your own.
Yes, right now, which is another reason why I wanted to start the trust. Our goal is to have a museum, so we're that's our long-term vision we're working towards. Mainly because my garage is now completely full of ice boats. I have 5 and many other parts. So the latest one we got was from a gentleman in Greenwood Lake down by Tuxedo, New York, and he collected many boats, and we got 3 or 4 from him, including one that was a significant boat from the 1940s called a Mead Skeeter, MEAD, built in Chicago, and was the forerunner of the boats that now go 140 miles an hour. So this thing looks like a rocket ship and is kind of an amazing boat. I got to sail it for the first time last week when we were in Massachusetts, and it's pretty amazing. But you need help, kind of similar to an F1 car, where you need help getting in and out of the thing, because partly because of my bulk and fat ass and aged body, but once it gets going, it's a lot of fun. So that's our club, our ancient club, 1800s club, first experience with a modern craft, and members who sailed it were having a lot of fun.
Right, and the club is the Hudson River Ice Yacht Club.
Club, yes, yeah.
Okay.
So the club has no can't raise money or anything. It's just a club, informal group of folks, and which is why, with my experience with the club at being Commodore, I don't know, for 15 years or whatever, I realized that as we get older and less limber, and there's less ice due to global warming and climate change, we have to do something with these boats. We don't want to see them turned into furniture or burned or, just thrown out.
Right.
So that's the motivation for starting the trust. So we are an associated group to the club. The club are advisors to the Ice Yacht Preservation Trust, so that any plans that we do make, we consult with the club. They give their, ideas behind it, because they're the experts. They are the ones that restore the boats, me included. But I'm in this unique position where I'm involved with both organizations. But
okay. Now,
anyway.
Once upon a time, I know there were builders who were famous for their craftsmanship, fashioning these ice yachts. Are there today people who are renowned for that particular skill?
Out in the Midwest, and these would be for modern boats.
Okay.
There's also a lot of innovation that individuals make, especially with these Skeeter class of boats. And also there's a lot of innovation with sail making.
Oh.
So a friend of our club, and I think a member, his name is Henry Bossett, and he's been a sail maker for 50 years with North Sails, and one of his specialties is making sails for ice boats, which is a little different than soft water boats sails.
How so?
I don't know if I can answer that.
Right.
A little bit different with material and the cut of the sail, because one thing two things that you have kind of instant acceleration. You have no friction with an ice boat. It's unlike a sailboat, soft water sailboat, where you have a hull that has to make its way through the water.
Right.
So there's a lot of force on that sail when it's loaded with wind to resist all of that force without tearing.
Right.
Ice boat sails could be a little different, because once you get going, you just get going. And you end up making your own wind as you go along. You're going at such a speed. It's just very similar to an airplane wing,
Right.
where lift is provided to raise you in an airplane, but the lift is directed downward with our vertical sail.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
So you said once you get going, because
Yeah.
I saw pictures of like people pushing hard,
Oh, yeah,
trying to get the boats going. And then I read something on one of your sites about sticky ice.
Sticky ice, snow, you can't, there's not much you do when there's more than about 2 inches of snow on the ice. There's just too much friction. I don't understand the physics of snow and how it really impedes ice boating. People have tried inventing skis for the ice boats that have never worked. The idea has never
They
worked.
could go in the snow.
Yeah, yeah. So, so that's sticky ice. It's a very fickle sport. You know, you can have ice but no wind. You can have warm temperatures. You can have too much wind. Pushing is there's a lot of pushing involved.
And is the ice? I'm guessing there's different levels of smoothness. I've seen ice that has sort of like frozen in place with sort of ripples because of the breeze and
Sure.
stuff.
Yes.
Is the Hudson River susceptible to that or less?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, there's years where we couldn't sail because of there might be cold temperatures at night. At 0 to 10 below, you're building about 2 inches of ice a night. But it might be windy, so the wind is breaking up the ice and piling it up in hummocks on shore, and you can't sail through that. It has to be relatively smooth ice.
Right.
So
how did you get into this interesting sport?
Well, I've been a speed skater for most of my life, and marathons were my specialty.
Really?
25 and 50 kilometer skates.
That's a long way to skate.
I was living above what at the time was the Cannibal Cafe, which was run by Mary Puccio and Pam Barish, and which is now Kips. So I was renting the apartment above what's now Kips, and
down here in Rhinecliff.
And I was traveling across the Kingston Rhinecliff Bridge with a friend of mine in January in 1989, and I looked down and I said, "What are those things down there flitting around? Those little white things?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, those are the ice boats." I said, "Turn the car around," and I made her turn the car around. Went immediately back to my apartment, got my speed skates on, and went down to the ice and skated a little bit, but then hung out with all these old geezers at the time. And
these
I
old
was
geezers
smitten.
in their boats.
Yeah, and got to meet everybody and started helping them and doing whatever I could. It was like, I don't know, some part of my subconscious was
Right.
turned on, and it was through that I was proven to be, helpful enough that I was suggested to caretake a boat, and that boat was Chris.
Oh.
Owned and still owned by the Brower family of Hyde Park.
Uh-huh.
So a little bit about the Browers. Chris, as I think I mentioned earlier, was one of John Roosevelt's boats.
Right.
It was a small boat that we considered to be the family boat because it has a very large cockpit. You could fit 2 kids and 2 adults in on the velvet cushions in the cockpit of the boat. And Chris is a wonderful boat, wonderful sailing boat. It's won races for me, and I've restored it after been granted the permission to caretake this thing by Arnold Brower. Arnold Brower was a kid whose dad was a carpenter on the Roosevelt estate. So he and two of his friends were playing one day, and they're playing around in the estate, and Franklin Roosevelt comes up to them, and he was trying to get rid of his ice boat. So he said, "How would each of you like an ice boat?" So of course they were, 8, 9 years old, and you don't need much motivation to get an ice boat when you're 8 or 9 years old.
Yeah.
Intriguing to the imagination. So Arnold Brower got Chris, and it was just a part of his heritage and the family's heritage, as well as all of his friends in Hyde Park, Tom Gilbert and Kinsey Todd and many other folks from Hyde Park that carried the tradition on from the 1800s into the 1900s. So Arnold Brower went on to become an Air Force colonel, and he was in charge of the SR-71 Blackbird program for the Air Force. And I have to think that it was ice boating that influenced him to pursue this career, flying and being in charge of design and manufacturing the most significant spy plane of the 1970s and 80s.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we have an arrangement. I have an arrangement with the family that we keep the boat in crack shape, ready to sail whenever they want to join us, and eventually they want to see it go to a museum, which was another motivation in the back of my mind to start the trust, because there's been bad experiences, I'll say, with New York State Museum. They acquire a lot of things that never see the light of day, and we were very worried that one of our ice boats would end up hidden away, never to be used again. So you're like, you know what, I don't want that to happen. I want this to be on view. Exactly. And so now you've started this trust, and you've got an eye towards having an exhibition space. Correct. Yes. Yeah. Right. And so, and how many boats? You mentioned you have 5 in your garage. How many more boats does the trust have? Brian Reed, our club secretary, the Hudson River Ice Yacht Club secretary and informal historian, I think has counted up about 60 boats that exist in one form or another. But many of the boats are at risk. Not everybody has a garage or a shop to work on these things. Some people have their boats under a tarp in the yard, and they're certainly at risk. And so right now that's kind of a working number that we're looking at. But the 60. Yeah. Okay, that's a pretty good number. Out of those, maybe 25 could be put on the ice and sailed today. Okay. So there's a lot of boats out there that need help. And will they eventually be put on the ice and sailed, or that's our intent? That's good. So it won't just be on display in some museum. No. It's I had an experience quite a while ago, 25 years ago or so. The Hudson River Museum in Yonkers was putting on a display of sailing on the Hudson, and they wanted an ice boat, and somehow they got a hold of my name, and they asked if I would loan them Chris for the show. And the Brower family said okay, and they brought the boat down there, set it up, and it was in a museum environment for about 6 months. And the boat came out of the museum, the climate-controlled museum, nearly falling apart. All of the joints had loosened up in the wood, and it needed a good 6 months more in humid conditions to, just like with a wooden boat, a water boat, an old sailing boat. It has to be in the water. It has to be in humid conditions. Right. So our intent with the museum is to have it be a working museum in those kinds of conditions, a barn, whatever, that we can both display and work on the boats. So we have a number of opportunities out there, and we're looking for more opportunities, more suggestions from people for facilities that we might eventually own. But it was very hopeful when Bard bought the Unification Theological Seminary property as part of their campus, because traditionally Tivoli Bay has been one of our home ice areas.
Right.
We had a good relationship with the Moonies. They let us access Tivoli Bay through their property, but we wanted to make sure that continues with Red Hook and Bard. And Red Hook is already planning a park that would provide access to Tivoli Bay. We spoke to them, and they are very willing to grant us access to drive down and load the boats onto the ice through this future park. But there are also some buildings on the Unification UTS property, including a barn from 1860s that would be a magnificent home for us. So we're hoping, that's out there in our dreams.
Taking Leon out to dinner once a week. But I mean, it sounds like a wonderful thing for a university. I mean, because you've got the history, you've got the physics and the engineering and the construction. I mean, it's so interesting in so many ways.
Sure, it'd be great for their curatorial studies program too, because here's a unique object that they can try wrapping their minds around.
Huh. Well, good luck. So where do your funds come from for the Preservation Trust?
We've had a meager start, but things are picking up. So
that's right. You're stuck on the sticky ice, and now you're getting a good push.
We've had some donations. We had a tremendous show at the FDR Library, Presidential Library, December 21st through June 8th or 9th. And
wait, is that up now?
No.
Oh, that was last
June,
year.
January.
Oh, January. Okay.
It only went out for about 2.5 weeks.
Right.
But it was in the Wallace Center, so we were able to set up 3 boats with the sails up, that were just an amazing representation. 2,000 people came through, and I would say 80% of them had never heard of ice boating before.
Yeah.
And certainly not the relationship of ice boating to the Roosevelt family. So this was really a great show. And FDR allowed us to have a party, a benefit, during one evening of the show. So that raised about $4,000. From that, we got an anonymous donation of $2,000 since then. And through our website.
What's the URL?
The URL is HRIYPT.org.
Hudson River Ice Yacht Preservation Trust.
Yeah.
HRIYPT.org.
That's correct.
And people can go there. There's a donate now button, hopefully, on the landing
I'm working
page.
on that this weekend.
Oh, come on. We could have spoken next week after you got that up.
Where's my daughter-in-law? I need her to help me with all the social media.
Oh, yeah.
But
listen,
anyway, through the website, we got an amazing donation from the Harrison Mujak Fund out in Puget Sound. I got an email from this gentleman, John Mujak, who said, "You guys are doing great things. I want to send you a donation." And we got a $5,000 donation from John Mujak. So
Did you send him 100 pierogies?
He deserves more than that. Let me tell you. So thank you, John, if you're listening.
That's amazing.
Yes.
And I just wanted to make a stump for this channel, which does have a donate now button up on their landing page.
Yes. Thank you for everything you're doing here.
RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. We're in the middle of a big fundraiser right now.
Yes.
And since you can't donate now on that site, go to our site and donate now for to keep the station going. So sorry, I had to do an ad.
Oh no, that's fine.
Producers here.
I guess I did too. So
making me nervous. So eventually you want to have a space where you can store all of these things. And is there a particular humidity that's best? And what kind of wood are they traditionally made from?
Oh, there's all kinds. Decorative woods, cherry and walnut for the places you hold on to.
Okay.
Versus pine or tulip for the working parts of the boat. So, and of course, oak and maple, local woods. So, yeah, it's, but no, most of these things are in barns right now, and that's kind of the perfect environment to have that kind of not climate controlled environment.
Really?
Yeah.
So they're getting moister in the summer and drier in the winter, and that's actually nice for these boats.
Yeah.
That seems kind of counterintuitive.
I mean, if in the best possible case, we would have a place to sew sails, a sail loft. So,
right.
So now you're getting into a big space that might be a little more difficult to maintain. We've had the folks down in Statsburg, Tamelia Sail Company.
Mm-hmm.
They are a sail loft run by a great couple. They have taken over the old general store in Statsburg, and they have altered sails for us, and they do a great job.
Oh, that's sweet.
Shout out to them.
So do you, in the summertime, do you sail on the Hudson as well?
No, it's too much work. No, it's funny. Ice boating, for the amount of effort I put into restoration, the sailing opportunities have been minuscule compared to what I would normally experience with a soft water boat. So
right.
I hang out with friends who have boats, like especially one friend
much smarter
down in Connecticut who takes 5 of us on a great cruise from Stanford up to Maine every couple of years. So shout out to them.
Oh, that sounds like a blast.
Yeah.
So the ice yachting is kind of a thrill seeker's pursuit.
I guess so.
Well, would you describe yourself as a thrill seeker? I know you're a motorcycle enthusiast.
No, it's motorcycling for me is a Zen-like activity. It's not about speed or anything else. It's about getting yourself in tune with something to such an extent that you forget everything else, and that's kind of what ice boating is about.
But okay, do the ice boats have brakes?
No, you just aim it into the wind and it stops immediately. So
okay.
I have never experienced anyone who's come up to me and been afraid to go on an ice boat.
Oh, well,
everyone is just like, I want to go out.
Here I am. Yeah, it seems a little bit thrilling and a little bit terrifying.
Maybe this is. I guess we're getting close to the end.
15 seconds left.
15 seconds.
Yeah.
My favorite time in an ice boat is going 5 miles an hour at 4 p.m. on a winter's late afternoon with the low angle, beautiful light, just dust, scooting along slowly on the ice. The sound, the light, everything is perfect.
A beautiful image to end this interview on. Bob Wills, thank you so much for being here.
And thank you, Norm. Thank you, Radio Free Rhinecliff.
Everybody have a great Friday. Thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to donate to any website that has a Donate Now button.
Thank you, Norm.